Alright kiddies, it's your Uncle Spurt here. Today we're having a good old squint at this Samsung Galaxy Book 5 Pro 360. An absolute whopper of a laptop stuffed full of juicy Intel Core Ultra Series 2 goodness despite its usual skinny design. That's right, I've got a 16-incher and I'm not afraid to boast about it. Although, as the Samsung Galaxy Book 5 Pro 360 starts from 1,699 quid, it has to be pretty well minted to afford one of these bad boys. So is it actually worth it? Well, I've been testing out this Sammy laptop all week, so here's my review. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! So first up, no real surprises or shocks from Samsung when it comes to the design. It very much looks like a Galaxy Book laptop. You've got a choice of one singular colour option, and that is this one, grey. Really gets the blood rushing to the old loins. But hey, the Galaxy Book 5 Pro 360 does look pretty smart. You've got this matte finish to the lid and the rest of the chassis, which thankfully doesn't pick up smudgy, greasy, grimy nonsense. Seems to be completely resistant to fingerprints, you know, having to constantly buff it up. And it's an aluminium chassis, so it's respectably tough too. And for a 16-incher, gotta say, this Sammy laptop is as skinny as usual. But it is a 16-inch laptop, so you're going to need a pretty hefty backpack to squeeze this thing inside. And while it's not exactly heavy for a 16-inch laptop, I wouldn't exactly call it a lightweight either. But perhaps unsurprisingly, the big whoop of the Galaxy Book 5 Pro 360's design is that 360-degree rotating hinge. Perfect for getting a bit of tent mode action on the go. And that's handy if you want to get all sketchy with the bundled S Pen stylus, you just want to kick back with a movie, something like that doesn't require the keyboard. And that hinge is pleasingly stiff, so you can get this laptop to pretty much any angle you like. And those touchscreen controls pretty responsive, so no issues there. And Samsung has slapped the usual selection of ports on the Galaxy Book 5 Pro 360. Nothing's changed from the previous generation. So once again, you've got dual Thunderbolt 4 ports slapped here on the left edge. It is a shame we couldn't have got one on each side, but hey-ho. And alongside those, you've also got an HDMI 2.1 port just about squeezed onto this skinny chassis. And then if we flip it over to the right edge, you've got yourself a Type A USB 3.2 port, sandwiched in there between a microSD memory card reader and a headphone jack. It's a perfectly respectable and unsurprising setup for such a slender laptop. And when you want to actually power on your Galaxy Book 5 Pro 360, well, Samsung has kindly stuffed a fingerprint sensor into that power button, so just gently rest your digit against the surface, and as you can see, in less than a second, you're straight into your laptop, ready for action. And as usual, Samsung stashes your biometrics and other sensitive bits in a special dedicated security chip. And the Galaxy Book's keyboard is nothing revolutionary, but it's pretty decent. The travel is very shallow, but the keys are nicely spread, and I found I got a good speed when I was touch typing. Pretty firm board as well, not very spongy at all. My only real bugbear is the fact that once again you've got this number pad wedged in right next to the rest of the keyboard, no separation there at all, so whenever I was trying to hit the enter key, for instance, or sometimes the shift key, I would accidentally mash the number buttons instead. Apart from that, all good. Fully backlit, of course, so you can use it into the wee hours. And you've certainly got a spacious touchpad here as well to match that mighty display. It's certainly comfortable to use. My only real complaint is that sometimes it takes a couple of efforts to actually get a left click on the go rather than a right click, because touchpad's wedged quite over to the left side and I am a righty. Now the Samsung Galaxy Book 5 Pro 360 boasts a 16-inch dynamic AMOLED 2X display, as with the previous generation. And once again, it's an absolute cracker. I've been watching absolutely everything on this thing, usually in good old tent mode, of course. And poor old telly hasn't had a look in. And this is a 3K resolution panel, 2880 by 1800, so those visuals are supremely crisp. The colours and the contrast all looks gloriously natural, but also more vibrant fare does look eye-pleasingly poppy. And if you want a specific colour profile, Samsung has you sorted. As you can see there, you can choose from the likes of sRGB, P3 and Adobe RGB. And Samsung has used anti-reflective Gorilla Glass for the Galaxy Book 5 Pro 360's screen. Now, this doesn't appear to be quite as effective as the Galaxy Tab Ultra's panel, sadly. As you can see, they still get a fair bit of reflection off that glossy panel. But no real worries, because that screen is powerfully bright when you max it out, so that can generally counter most of the remaining glare. So yes, this Samsung laptop can be used outdoors fairly comfortably. And the refresh rate here maxes out at 120 Hz with dynamic refresh rate, of course, as usual, so it will automatically scale up and down when required. And of course, because it's a touchscreen, pretty good for any creative types out there, or anyone who just wants to do a bit of colouring in their spare time. Samsung has bundled a stylus with this laptop as well. It's just a passive stylus, it doesn't need charging or anything. Just tap it to the screen and away you go. I haven't done any colouring since I was about 7 years old. This is actually strangely satisfying. The only problem with Samsung Stylus is there's nowhere to stash it in the laptop, no convenient orifice to bung it inside of. So I'll inevitably end up losing this thing probably after about a week or two. And the Samsung Galaxy Book 5 Pro 360 boasts a quad AKG speaker setup, but now with even bigger woofers than the previous generation. You've got a bit of Dolby Atmos surround sound support on here as well, and certainly the audio is an immersive experience when you are kicking back with some Netflix or whatever. Got a surprising amount of bass, and certainly when you peak that volume, it is a full-on frontal assault. So stuff like action scenes sound pretty meaty. Every crunch and smash really gets you right in the face. And yeah, it's absolutely loud enough to hear over any kind of background clamour really. And the Samsung Galaxy Book 5 Pro 360 sports your typical standard Full HD webcam squirreled away in that teeny wee bezel above the display. You can record up to Full HD resolution video with this. Fine for your Skyping and Zooming and all that kind of shenanigans. Not too perturbed by strong contrast in the background, as you can see there. And Samsung's built-in mics do a pretty good job of picking up on your voice as well if you can't be bothered to wear a headset. And you've got the usual range of dynamic camera effects as well, including a bit of auto framing, as you can see there. You can also change up the background effects, so you can completely blur everything in the background. And that's thanks to the Intel Core Ultra 7 Series 2 chipset that's stuffed inside of here, backed by 16 gigs of tasty RAM. And that Intel processor comes with an integrated NPU with up to 47 TOPS of thrust power for all of your AI type shenanigans, including of course our great mate Copilot, who is a mere key press away. The perfect tool for drawing you the artworks of badgers wearing lederhosen or coming up with crap sonnets all about sausage rolls. Huzzah! And stay tuned for some hot Copilot Plus shenanigans apparently coming to this laptop soon. Don't know about you, but the anticipation has already got me at half-mast. And if you're balls deep in Samsung's entire ecosystem, well, you can use the likes of Quick Share to quickly beam files, photos, etc. from your Galaxy phone to your laptop. Can mirror the screen, all kinds of stuff. But what about the gaming performance here on the Galaxy Book 5 Pro 360? Well, you've got Intel's integrated Arc GPU handling those visuals. And I decided, as usual, to give this laptop a thorough going over with a bit of Forza Horizon action, starting with the benchmarking, which ran at 1920 by 1200 pixel resolution on the high graphics preset. And this laptop achieved an average frame rate of 50 frames per second. Fluctuating between 44 and 59. And certainly over the course of a gaming session that lasted just over an hour, the frame rate remains perfectly stable, with the exception of just one quite noticeable judder during the many races. And so sadly I can't blame the Samsung Galaxy Book 5 Pro 360 for my piss poor performances, and that was right down to my somewhat unorthodox racing technique. As always, I proved the scourge of fences, trees and entire fields of crops. That's someone's livelihood, that is. I'm probably going to be destitute because of me. So certainly a step up from the previous generation, and yeah, if you're into your benchmarking, well, I did run a bit of Cinebench 24, which spaffed out single core scores around the sort of 110, 120-ish mark, and multi-core scores around 610, 620-ish, both an improvement again over the previous gen. Meanwhile, Geekbench 6 spunked out a single core score of 2600-ish, which is another improvement, and a multi-core score of 10,800-ish, which is actually slightly worse. Yeah, frankly, benchmarking's a load of bollocks anyway. I think I found the everyday performance generally pretty smooth. You can happily dive into creative tasks like editing photos in apps like GIMP. Also slap together a video in Samsung Studio, all that kind of jazz. But the area where I noticed the biggest improvement here on this generation of Galaxy Book over the previous generation is the battery life. So with the Book 5 Pro 360, I typically got around 10 hours of mixed use from a single charge. That includes working in Chrome while blasting music out of the laptop speakers, using the Spotify app, and also downloading whopping great files and stuff in the background. Occasionally doing a bit of video chat action and stuff as well. And with that sort of usage, I typically only got around 6 to 7 hours of playtime from a full charge of the previous gen. So this time around, it'll see you through a full working day, unless you like to work for about 14 hours a day like I often do. Or if you don't really like working, you like just sitting on your arse watching Netflix all day, well, great news. The Galaxy Book 5 Pro 360 only dropped around 7% battery life an hour when streaming video non-stop. So yeah, you'll comfortably get around 14-15 hours of full-on Netflix action before this thing dies a death as well. And there you have it, my lovelies. That is my full, final, frank review of the Samsung Galaxy Book 5 Pro 360. The highlight here is undoubtedly that almighty 16-inch 3K display. It's an absolute stunner, perfect for kicking back with a bit of movie action, your favourite telly shows, whatever, and great for a bit of gaming or creative shenanigans, which this laptop can definitely handle too. Anyway, that's what I reckon. It'd be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, and have yourselves a really wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you.